Hi there and welcome to the session on how to set up document notifications as an administrator. These initial steps to actually get you going and allow your users to actually start emailing out to external parties when new documents are added to the system with links for them to download those documents. I won't go into too much detail about document notifications. There's plenty in the help files to describe what they are and what they do for you, but let's see how to enable them now as administrator first time so that your users can start using the system properly. So the very first area we need to go to is into System Administration and Settings, and let's actually enable document notifications. The very first field I'd like you to see is this one. External URL to your logo image. Now, if you're using Dellegance on-premise, which means you're not exposing Dellegance to the internet, your external users will not be able to get access to your logo and your logo image on the emails. And as a lot of email clients are quite fussy on how images are displayed, the safest way is via a URL to your image. So we recommend that you put an image somewhere exposed on the internet, either via your corporate website or through CDN or other resources, and get a URL to your image, and you see I've got one set up here. So that's the very first step, and it'll make pretty emails for your external users. Next, we're going to go over to the document notification tab, and obviously the first thing to do is to actually enable it. The next box to look at is what time of day for monthly and yearly notifications do we want the system to trigger the actual check every day. Now, I've defaulted this to 11 o'clock at night. For testing, you can obviously need to change that to the hour you're testing in. But what it is, it stops the system becoming overloaded should you start running lots of notifications in the middle of the day and the system gets busy. It'll just give you more memory in your system. So usually at night time is a perfectly good time. And there are also some defaults that when we're going to trigger, what day of the month are we going to use as defaults to trigger our monthly notifications, and they do nothing more than provide a default value. So they don't change how notification works. It's just if you haven't decided what you want on a document type, it'll pick it up and bring it through. The next item is document versions. So if you're using versions of documents and you want to make sure your external party is then notified when you add a new version of a document, you can turn that on. And then they simply will say new version has arrived, download the new version, which keeps them up to date if you have a document that wasn't quite the final version when you told them about it. The notification from email is a default from address, and the notification email subject is again the address that will appear, so the subject header that will appear in all your emails to your clients. At the bottom we have a default email disclaimer text. Dellegance has a standard one, and if you don't fill this in, it'll use the standard, which it will translate into multi-languages. This one is in a single language, but if you have a specific one that your company uses, this is where you update it, and all your emails will say this. And you have a default introduction paragraph. Now, when you set up doc types, you can override this automatically by putting a text in at the doc type stage. But as we are setting up defaults, this is where we'd put it in, just in case we didn't want to bother doing it for each document type. So we've done the first stage. Now, before we go to set up document types, which drive the notification process, we ought to make sure that if we're going to do approvals, that we set up an approval process and an approval group. So an approval group is just a grouping of people who are doing your approvers, are doing your reviews for you. You see, I have one set up here for documents, and you can add anyone available as a Dellegance user to this group. Simple to do. So let's move on now to actually setting up an approval process. So this is the process that's followed when an approval is requested. So we'll set up a new one and we'll start from scratch here. So we'll give it a name, and we were doing a former document called a claims border here for the insurance industry. So who's going to actually be doing our approving? Well, we're going to use that document approval group, the people in that as our approval. And who's the approval apply to? Well, actually it applies to a document, because we are approving documents. The next thing it asks us is how many people are required to make a decision. It told us already there's only 2 people in the group, but actually either one approving is good enough for me. And I think they should do that no later than 3 days. So they've got an SLA of 3 days on there. And I'm expecting their performance to get 80% within that time period. So you can start measuring KPIs later on in the system. How are they going to decide whether to agree a document? Well, it could be unanimous if both agree it. I think we'll do that. It could be a majority. And do we require responses from all of them before setting the approval? Well, no, we're leaving it at 1. So whoever gets there first and approves the document, it's fine. But if both do it, that's good too. So, do we want to, next very important box is this box here, is updating the approval status on the entity. Now the entity here is the document, and if you don't tick this box, when they do their automatic approval, the document will not be updated as approved. So you would have sort of failed in your mission to actually automatically approve your document. So really important you tick that box. Do you want to email the approval outcome to the people that approved it? Well, no, they're going to know what they did more than likely, but you can if you want. But it might be nice to let the person know, the sponsor, the person who actually asked for the approval, let them know that it's been approved. And therefore, if you're going to let them know, why don't you show any approval decisions and comments on the outcome document? Because that's useful. They know who approved it then. If they've got any queries, they'll be able to go to that person. And very importantly, so you're going to create an approval, but it doesn't get released unless you select it to be auto-release. So that means you can create approvals manually and not release them. But obviously in this case, we want it automated. These are documents. So are we going to create an actual document itself to be saved to the system for the approval to show what happened, and for when they actually send it out, they'll get a nice notification saying, please look at this document of this type. Picks up all those narratives we were talking about elsewhere. Yes, we're going to send that. We're going to create a document. It's going to have a link so they can get it on their email client and click it and go straight to the document itself. And to actually make the decision, and a link for the document itself so they can view it without actually logging in, which makes life useful. You don't tend to have active issues for documents. It's not something Dellegance currently does, so you wouldn't bother with that. And we are going to email them that document, and it's going to be from a specific link, so that appears in the from email. And do we want to let the sponsor know that his approval's gone out? Yes and no, that's your business choice really. So that's the approval process set up, and if I refresh the tree, you'll see that claims border is in there. I think a better name might be given to that. Everything's set up as we want it, and it can be amended here. The only thing you'll need to do is to put a body text for your approval document. So please approve this. Obviously you might have more complex instructions, so that's why that box is there. It's picked up a default cancellation, so if you cancel the approval, they get an email saying we've cancelled it, don't bother. And you also can do the body text for the outcome. So hope has been made, done be done be done. So you might want to say, for example, and the document has been approved. You'll have your own words that you'll get used to and will suit you. So let's update that. That's completely finished, and that can now be used. So the last piece to do to finish off the administrator configuration is document types. So let's go there. So here we are in document types. Let's create a new document type for this example. So when you create a normal document type, obviously you create document types to enable documents to be filed in specific parts of the system. So the document owner is the place where your documents will appear effectively, and each document owner will only see a subset of all the document types that are applicable to them. So that's the normal side. You can see it's nice and short. Obviously contracts are what we're doing here. I've already got one called claims border. I'll just call this one test claims for argument's sake. Retention days is the number of days before it's destroyed automatically in the system. 0 means it never will be, and the standard functionality of documents is set as normal. So let's say PDF documents here, and we're going to have an Excel spreadsheet and an XLSX. Lovely, that'll do us. Now at this stage, that's normal. But because it's a notifiable document, we have a load of extra options. So as soon as we tick the notifiable document box, it asks us more questions. So it says, are we going to pre-approve this document? Yes, we are. And we're going to use our approval process that we created called document approval. So let's have a look here. How long will the URL link be valid for? Well, let's give them 120 days. 120 days. So that the links are basically encrypted and encoded. So after 120 days, that link will not provide access to that document, and that access is read-only. So they can't actually access the servers. And so we might want to have a separate email address, different from the default. If you leave it empty, it'll just pick up the default. And do we want to blind copy a copy of the email back to this address? A lot of people like that, so the option's there. At the same time, it can actually create a copy of the document on the server. Now, it files that in the party. So if you set up a notification against an external party you've set up and linked to your contract, it will save a copy back of that email back into that party's documents tab. So every time you notify them, you'll get a copy saved in one secure place. So if you need to have a clear audit trail of what you've sent them, the system will only send that copy document back if it's sent the email. If it hasn't, it won't. So that's a good feature to have. The next thing is you can notify up to twice a month. So if I go to 2 months monthly, or of course you could do days, you could do it twice daily if you have that sort of documentation, but really months and years are what people mostly use. So which days of the month do I want to notify? Well, I'm just going to say the 1st and the 15th here. And then here is the override on the default text. So it's not particularly exciting, but I could put here some lovely claims documents for you to download. I'm sure they won't have any fun, so I think we'll get rid of that. Okay, and update. Now we'll find now in the system, probably on the last page, we have our test document type set up, and it shows you there the notification, how the links are valid for, and the usual information on all the normal stuff that you expect to see. So that's the end of setting up document notifications as administrator. In part 2 of this series, I'll look at the usage by your users of document notifications, how they set up a document notification against the contract, and how they save documents to it, and then how it all works. It'll all just fit together for them. So they don't need to know this. It's administrator only. I hope you found this session useful. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and get the latest updates and all the new tutorials as they come out. If you're new to Dellegance, go to dellegance.com and find out why you should be using Dellegance today.